Hey everybody, I'm Gary McLean, and you are watching Talent Talk. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the season opener for season 3. I hope everybody had a great Christmas and New Year and all that kind of stuff. It's been 3, 4 months now since we've been able to chat. So super excited to get started on the new season, and definitely excited to bring you another stellar schedule of guests. A couple things I wanted to kind of mention before we bring on our guest. As obviously you're probably aware, if you were watching last season, we've changed our schedule a little. We are now Wednesday nights instead of Saturday mornings. So every second Wednesday, starting tonight, 7 p.m. is when Talent Talk will be airing. Part of the reason we're doing that is to hopefully bring in a few more viewers that might not have been available during the weekend. And another thing that we've done is we've actually shortened down our interviews a little bit. So no longer a 60-minute show, we are a 30-minute show. Again, hopefully to entice a few other viewers to come in and check us out and say hi. So one other reminder before I get to our guest, as mentioned, this is a live show, so please say hi, ask yourself or ask us questions, myself or the guest, comment, vent. Might not answer your venting, but it's more than welcome. Having said that, today's inaugural guest for the season is a comedic and television veteran with a career that spans more than 30 years. He is an actor, comedian, writer, motivational speaker who started acting at a young age and has appeared in numerous television shows, films, commercials, and theater productions. As a professional comedian, he has toured across Canada and the US, appearing at comedy clubs and comedy festivals as a featured headliner. He also speaks and presents at corporate events, providing talks on varied business topics, perseverance, and resiliency, weaving in a bit of comedy and storytelling. So please join me in welcoming the very talented Charles Andrew Payne.
Hey, Gary, how are you?
Good, Charles. How you doing?
Good, good. Listening to that intro, I'm like, who is that guy he's talking about?
Right? Yes. I love to throw in a little flourish here and there. Yeah. Yeah. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. Thanks for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Oh, definitely glad to have you on the show for sure, man. It's been a long time coming, actually. I think you and I talked about this probably 2 years ago.
Yes, we did. Yes,
So,
we did. And then I kept seeing other people on the show, and I'm like, why not me? No, I'm just kidding.
right. Now, today is your day.
Today's my day. It's my turn. Everybody gets a turn. It's my turn.
Exactly. That's
Thank you.
exactly right. Everybody gets their turn for sure.
Thanks
I
for
have
having
a, I
me.
have a huge list. I got to tell you,
Yeah,
which is
that's
which is
good.
nice.
That's good.
Um, you know what? Let's start off, and maybe you can tell the viewers who you are, when you got
Hi.
started, why you got started.
Oh, you want to go there? Okay. Oh, so this, you know what? I like to say I've lived a charmed life. And a lot of what has happened to me has been rather serendipitous. So, how did I get started? Well, my sister used to model for Blanche McDonald. And I went in there with my mother to pick my sister up after some photo session or what have you. I think I was about 13 or 14 years old. And the owner, I was sitting waiting for them, and the owner walked by me, looked at me, walked by again, looked at me, and she came by. She goes, "Are you one of ours?" And I said, "No, I'm just here to pick up my sister." And she goes, "Well, I think you should be." And next thing I know, I'm in the office with her and my mother, and I'm being signed up to start modeling. And had fun doing it. And modeling led to commercials, and commercials led to my first acting gig, and again serendipitous. I was doing a fashion show. I'd been modeling now for about 5 years, and the casting director was in the audience, and she came up to me after the show and asked me if I had done any acting, and I said I'd done some theater and a bunch of commercials, and she was casting a pilot for a TV show and wanted to know if I would come out and read because she was having difficulty finding a young Black actor. And that show was the pilot for 21 Jump Street. Didn't have a clue what I was doing. Didn't have a clue. I literally went to the studio, and she coached me before the audition, and then I went in the room the next day to audition for the producers and the director. And one of the weirdest most fascinating things in my life happened. I went in the room, didn't have a clue. I just did, did it the way we had rehearsed it, the casting director and I. And they asked me a bunch of questions, and then they said thank you, and I left, and I was on my way out to the parking lot, and the casting director came around, and she goes, come back in, they want to talk to you again. So I went back in the room, and they had me do it one more time, made me some changes, and then one of the few times this has happened in my career, they said, what are you doing for the next 3 weeks? And I said, I don't know. What am I doing for the next 3 weeks? And they said, well, welcome aboard. You're hired. I got hired in the room.
I'm still waiting for that moment to happen. So congrats.
Thank you. But I didn't have a clue. I didn't know anything. I didn't actually have an acting agent. So that's the other thing that happened to me, is that this casting director called up one of the bigger agencies. This is back in Vancouver. And said, hey, I have a young actor that needs representation, and I think he's, I was in the room when she was called him, and I want to send him over to meet you. And by the way, he just booked a guest star part on a pilot for a new TV series. So of course they signed me up. Why wouldn't they? They're going to get their percentage.
Absolutely, right? Yeah. They love that.
Yeah. So, and that set, I had so much fun on that set, and we filmed for 8 or 9 days, and then I guess while they were filming, they were doing some testing with it, and the original person who played lead on the show wasn't testing as well, so they got rid of him and they brought in Johnny Depp, and we shot it all over again. So my number of days on set doubled.
So you got paid twice.
Oh, and I had no idea. I just showed up every day and was just like a kid in a candy store, in awe of it. It was my first real part. I mean, I've been on movie sets before, but for commercials. And when you're a model in a commercial, you don't really get to say anything most of the time. You're just smiling. You've seen those, the Molson Canadian commercials, or you're just a pretty face in the crowd kind of thing, and you get paid. It's called SOC. But this was me, with a pretty chunky part, and working with some people who had names, like Peter DeLuise and Dustin Nguyen and Johnny Depp before he was Johnny Depp, and another wonderful, still a friend of mine. We still keep in touch. Reginald Dorsey, who kind of took me under his wing because he'd been acting since he was much younger, and he was like, I think I was 18 playing 18, and Reginald Dorsey was 27 playing 18, and he'd been acting for a long time, and he'd actually flown into Vancouver from another movie set, and so he kind of took me under his wing because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have a clue, and he's showed me how things worked, told me who was who, and what a gaffer was, and who the cinematographer was, and who I didn't know any of that stuff. That was my trial by fire.
What a way to go, though. Like, man,
yeah,
that's a good trial by fire for sure, I think.
Yeah.
And so, what was your actual very first gig that you remember, and how old were you at that time?
My actual,
whether it be modeling.
Modeling when I was 12. My first theater production was in a play called Singing for Boyfriends. Then a bunch of commercials, and then a small part in a movie called, I think it was called The Christmas Star with Ed Asner. I had like 3 lines in it. And then the pilot for 21 Jump Street. And then it snowballed from there.
Okay. And so you had a bit of a gap, though, I believe, as your career kind of went. Like, obviously it took off, with a little bit with 21 Jump Street. You went for a while, and then you kind of stopped for a while, I think, right?
I worked when I was in Vancouver. I worked fairly consistently playing delinquent bad boys. And then I got to a certain age where I was too old to play teenagers and not quite old enough to play, the older roles. And so I had a bit of a gap there, and that was very frustrating. And then I made a deliberate and concerted choice, because as an actor of color, a lot of the roles I played to get my start and build my reel was me playing, drug dealer, delinquent, kid who was lipped off in school, kid who got into trouble. I mean, I did a number of episodes on MacGyver, which I loved, and they actually put the idea in my head where I played Breeze on MacGyver, and he was a drug dealer, And his friend, played by Cuba Gooding Jr., was used to be part of my gang, was out of the gang. I was the gang leader, and Cuba would belong to, and they used to do an arc on MacGyver called the Challenger series. So MacGyver volunteered at the Challengers Boys and Girls Club, and Cuba Gooding was, became part of the Challengers Boys and Girls Club. He tried to recruit me into there. So, and that was only supposed to be a one-off episode for me, and the writer and the producers liked me, and so they brought me back. And so I did a bunch of episodes there where I played Breeze. But Breeze had a nice arc where he went from being a drug dealer, got into trouble, to a kid who volunteered at the Challenger Boys and Girls Club. And what some of the actors and the producers on that show said to me, they said, we didn't want you to be the bad kid. We want to show that you could take a different path. And he says, Charles, you naturally, you sound like you went to a prep school. You sound, when you talk, right? And he says, you should cultivate that. There's not enough of that. And he says, as you get older, you're going to play lawyer, doctor, cop. There's not enough of those roles. And so I put that in my head. So when I got old enough to start playing stuff, I wouldn't go and audition for, the drug dealer or the tough, but I'd go out and audition for the cop and the detective. Remember the first detective role I got was in the movie, and I said to my agent at the time, I said, I don't know anything about this. I feel so out of my depth. And he goes, I got you covered. And I went on a ride along with the Vancouver police.
Nice.
3 nights in a row, I went out with those cats and talked to them about what it was like being a cop, and how, and watched how they interacted with people when they pulled up and did, talk. And one of the police officers said to me, he goes, I've been a cop for 20 years. I've never taken my gun out once. He goes, a lot of policing is talking. And he says, it doesn't matter what's going on around you. You are the calm center, the eye of the hurricane. So every cop role, didn't matter if things are blowing up around me. You're the center. You're the eye of the hurricane. You're the calm. You're level. You're de-escalating. Like I said, I've lived a charmed life because things have just manifested for me as I've moved along in my career.
Nice. Well, before we kind of get into your transition to comedy, I do want to show a quick little picture, which I believe this is from MacGyver. So I love this photo, actually, when you sent it to me.
Look at me, young and with hair.
Right?
Yeah, that's Breeze.
That's fantastic.
That's from an episode called The Gun, which
Excellent.
was such a joy.
It's just, yeah, I know. I saw this picture at first, and I was like, who is this guy? I don't know this guy.
Though I asked the same question, I look at that picture and said, who is that guy?
You know what? I do that with some of my old photos right now. I look back at one of my first passports, and I'm like, who the hell is that guy? That's not me. That's for sure. I don't know where his looks went, but so at what point did you decide to try your hand at stand-up?
Stand-up.
And how did you even decide to come to that?
I have been a fan of comedy for a long, long time. And again, another funny story, like I told you, charmed life. Okay, when I tell stories, sometimes I tell these stories and I'm like, I don't even believe them myself. Like, this is how my life was. I had a bunch of friends, and we would go down to open mic night at Yuck Yucks in Vancouver. It was Wednesday nights. Go down after work for some chicken wings and beer and listen to comedy. And it was open mic. So, and after we've been doing that for a few months, we're down there, and my buddies are chuckling to themselves, and I don't know what's going on. And then the MC goes on stage, and he says, coming to the stage next, new comic. I don't know him much about him, but his friends tells me he's very funny. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Charles Andrew Payne. And I went, what? There's another guy in here named Charles Andrew Payne, and my friends are killing themselves laughing. And I'm like, dude, and they're like, we signed you up, man. We signed you up. Go. So I'm like, what am I going to do? And they said, tell that story. So I went on stage, and I'm a storyteller, and I told some stories, and people laughed. And I had never felt so alive than in that moment. I absolutely loved it. And I've been toying with the idea, and I know why they did that. I was toying with the idea, and I'd mentioned to them that I think I want to try that. And so, but I needed a push, and they knew I needed a push. And so and So then after that, I started showing up at open mics, and then I took a comedy writing course that was taught by a comic named David Grenier at Langara College. I went and took that course, and that actually spearheaded my whole process into writing, and started showing up and doing shows and doing open mics, and then was invited to open for a couple people and to MC a few shows. And then I started getting paid. As soon as you get paid for your first show, you're a professional comic. I was so happy. I got paid. It didn't matter. It was $25. I got paid.
Right? No,
Yeah.
I hear that. Same with the acting gig, right? It's like as
Yeah.
soon as you get paid, that's it.
As soon as you get paid and you get in the union, you're a pro.
Right? It's just, especially in Calgary, just after that, you might go 2 years without getting another role. But
Yeah, yeah.
but
And
anyway, that's a different story.
and that was the other thing for me, Gary, is that comedy gave me an opportunity to be on stage and to perform. It gave me an opportunity to hone my storytelling skills. And when I first came out in comedy, the first year or two of comedy, hadn't found my voice, and I would. I watch a lot of comedy. I still do now, and you kind of imitate other people and stuff. And I have to give a shout out to a really cool cat, Daryl Lennox. He's a comedian from the States and used to come up to Vancouver all the time. And Daryl Lennox, took me under his wing again. And Daryl said to me one day, he says, "Charles, man, when you talk to me, you tell some of the funniest stories. When you get on stage, that's not you on stage." He goes, "That's not who you are. Go on stage and be you and tell your stories. This is the stories you tell about growing up in the Caribbean, the stories you tell you." So here's the line that he gave me, and I tell this to other comics all the time: always tell the truth. Just lie while you're doing it. That's what Daryl, he said, just tell your truth, tell your story. And so I switched my whole comedy setup, and then I started working more as a comic. I started getting booked more for comedy stuff when I started becoming less of a joke teller and more of a storyteller. And I started, and so when I write as a comic, I write from a perspective of tell yourself the truth about yourself. Right. So a lot of my comedy is based in what's happened to me or is happening to me, and then I kind of exaggerate pieces of it for the humor bit. So.
For sure, and I think that's what a lot of comedy is, right? Is relating to real life situations, whether it be yours or what you've visualized.
Yeah,
and that's what makes people laugh, right? Because they can relate.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, "Oh yeah, I've been there." Okay.
Yeah, one of my favorite comedy memories happened. I was headlining at a comedy club in Calgary here at the Blues Can. I used to have a comedy night there, and there was an old gentleman came up to me after the show. And a lot of my comedy, when I headline, I tell stories about my growing up and my transition from growing up in a third world country to moving to Canada and all that. And he came up to me after the show and he says, "I hate that there's comedy here." And I thought, "Oh God, this is not good." And he goes, "But you know what? You started talking and I listened." And he goes, "And I was crying and I was laughing." He goes, "Can I hug you?" An old gentleman, like in his 70s, he's hugged me. He goes, "Thank you so much." He goes, and I still remember that because that's why I do it, right? To connect with people, to touch people, and for him to say, "You know what? I found your story so touching. It was humorous and sad, and I was crying at the same time." Right?
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm just going to share a comment that one of our viewers made because I think it's pertinent. Thanks for the comment, by the way, and for the other folks watching, just a reminder: don't hesitate to throw in some more comments, or if you have questions for myself or Charles, say it. And again, as mentioned at the beginning of the show, this is now a 30-minute show, and man, it's going fast. We're down to the final 10 already. I'm just like, holy crap.
Sorry. Wow.
No, it's great, man. It's as far as I'm concerned, when it goes fast, that means it's going well. Because we're enjoying it. So having said that, I'm kind of curious, especially with COVID and how that's kind of hit, how it's kind of affected you, because stand-up is kind of your bread and butter for the most part, I believe, right? So maybe you can chat about that a little bit.
Stand-up is what, it's not even so much bread and butter in terms of financials. It's bread and butter in terms of feeding my my need to perform, feed in my need for my soul. You
Yeah.
can have a bad day and go do a 5-minute set at an open mic and the crowd laughs and you're happy again, right? Um, COVID threw a wrench. I had 2020 was going to be a fantabulous year for me in terms of comedy. I had things booked, I had things going, and then COVID came and everything, went online, or shows were happening but at 50% capacity, which means then you feel bad. I headlined at a comedy club in Lethbridge. That was the last live show I did, and the owner came up to me and says, I'm still going to pay you what I said I would, but he called it a sold out show, and there was like 30 people in the audience.
Right.
And I just looked at him. I said, no, man, you're not making any money here either, right? Like, I'm grateful for you to doing this, right? And I went out there, he put me up in a hotel and all that, but I said, and that was the last show I did. And then everything went online, and I tried the online comedy. It's not the same. Right? You need the immediate feedback. You
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody else about this actually, and I guess one of their experiences with, because of course everybody was jumping on that bandwagon of doing live shows and
Mhm.
you know doing live musical shows and things like that. And one of the bands did, and I can't remember who it was, but I guess what they did is they would actually turn the audio on from all the people watching, so when they were cheering, you could actually get
Could
that
you hear it?
feedback through. Yeah,
Yeah.
which I thought was kind of a cool idea, but
Yeah. But
help alleviate some of that
but I am
overload.
doing a show online right now, but it's more of a comedy writing challenge. Um, the producer had a great idea and reached out to me and said, "Hey, love for you to be part of it." And I said, "Sure." So how it works is, an hour before the show goes live, you get a topic. The producer sends you a random topic. You have an hour to write 3 to 5 minutes of material, and then you go live with 8 other comics, and you do your 3 minute, 3 to 5 minutes of whatever you've written, and it's live. And so people are commenting and the other comics, and then people get to vote, and the other comics get to vote for the best set of the night. And it's over the 8 week period. Who has the most points after the 8 weeks is going to win that comedy write-in. And it's, what, we did the first one on Monday, and I wasn't sure what to expect, but it was an absolute blast, and I'm looking forward to next week because it was a challenge. You get a topic. You get an hour. I usually write and hone the material long before I present it. I got an hour to write, 3 to 5 minutes of material. That's hard. It's a
Oh,
lot of work.
yeah, I can only imagine. I mean,
Yeah.
but again, that gets the creative juices flowing, right? Keeps the
Yeah.
mind going,
Keeps
which is
always,
good.
what, I was glad, I glad that I convinced myself to say yes when because he emailed me and asked me about it, and I waited about 4 or 5 days before I responded, because I was like, I don't know if I want to do this, it's online. And then yeah, you're not doing anything else, and it'll get you an opportunity to write, do it. And I'm
Yeah,
glad I said yes.
definitely, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the acting side, though, have
Mhm.
you found that that's changed quite a bit for you, or are you still getting quite a bit of work on the films or
Um,
stage
I've
side?
had I've had a couple of auditions. I just didn't finished a project with someone you had on your show. I think one of your last shows of last season, Rome. We did an independent called The Surrogate that I'm very, very pleased with. I can't wait for it to come out. Oh, look at that! There you go. Um, you know what? Rome is a actor to watch. The writer of this, Michelle Owusu, what, it's just such a magnificent. I cried the first time I read it.
Wow.
And and again, serendipitous life, charmed life. I'd worked with the director of this, was the cameraman on another film that I did prior to this. And he sent me an email one day and said, Charles, I have a project that I'm working on with this young writer, blah, blah, blah. It's an independent. Love for you to be part of it. Here's the script, have a read. So of course, I respond back saying, yeah, hey, this is fantastic. I said, it's so touching. I cried. He goes, I said, when's the audition? And he laughed. He says, no, man, the part's yours. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, the audition was that last movie we did where I was just, I've seen
Right.
your work. And so, yeah. But there hasn't been a lot of work. I have a short that I wrote that we were going to go to camera with this year and then last year, and COVID kind of kiboshed that. And I was thinking about that today when I was thinking about coming on this. I was like, you know what? We got to be COVID be damned. We should just find a way to go to camera and get this done. So
Right. Yeah.
I'm hoping to pick that project up and get that done this year. So
Excellent. No, good luck with that. So many, yeah, I know so many other people that are trying to get projects off the ground, and they just keep getting postponed.
yeah,
But yeah, like you said, COVID be damned. Let's just get this thing done.
well, people need to work. People need to express themselves, and you know,
Totally.
I've been very fortunate that COVID hasn't hurt me as I know it's hurt a lot of other people. I've been very blessed that way. Um, so I'm grateful for that. I feel bad for people who have lost their jobs or their source of income, um, and are having a hard time. And so my heart goes out to you. Um, COVID has actually been kind of a blessing for me in the sense that there have been some positive. I get to spend more time with my family because everybody's home. My wife, I've always worked from home. I'm always home. My wife now works from home. So we're getting to spend a lot more time with each other, and that's kind of fun. And I'm exercising more because I have free time to do that. I have this mantra that I do. And every day I do three things, something for my body physically. So I exercise, something for my mind, read something new, read new articles, do some research, and something for my spirit, do something that brings me joy and happiness. I get to spend time with my kids and my wife and walk my dogs and do yoga and work out. And you know what? So yeah, it sucks that we can't mix and mingle with our friends, but you got to find the joy and the positive where you can, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, well, we are coming to the last couple minutes here, so a couple things I'll pop up here. So, other than the other film that you're trying to get off the ground here, what's the future holding for Charles at this moment? Do you think, or where do
I
you want to see it go?
where do I want to see it go? You mean the film that I want to do?
Yeah, or anything beyond that. Yeah.
Well, the other thing that COVID has given me time to do is write. So I have been doing some writing. So got a couple of things that I'm working on. That's I'm looking forward to that. Post COVID, there might be some more stuff coming out. Action. Hey, you know what? If you're watching and you're a producer, or you got a project, hit me up. I'm always open to read it. I'm always open. I'm I am the happiest person on a movie set or given an opportunity to perform. When I was in university, I had a professor say to me, here's the secret to life, Charles. Find something you gladly do for free, get yourself well trained in it, and then find a way to get paid to do it. Everything that I do is something that I would gladly do for free, from comedy to writing to motivational speaking to hosting corporate events or what have you. Gladly do it for free, but don't y'all take that seriously. I still need to get paid.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. It's all good. Yeah, I'm still doing it all for free, which I'm okay with because I enjoy it.
Yeah,
But one day I'd love to get paid for it. That'd just be nice.
I can't.
Cherry
You
on
can't.
the top.
You can't pay your bills with exposure.
No, no, you can't. That's okay. We still love it, so we'll keep doing it.
I do it. I do it for the love, and if I get paid for doing it, that's a bonus. That's how
E-
I look at it.
Exactly. I did notice that Gordo left another comment. He says, "Do the short." He did his, so just get
Oh,
it done. So,
well, all right. Well, hit me up, Gorda. Tell me how you did it, man. I'd love to. I'd love to hear. So,
and on that note, unless there's any other questions that anybody watching would like to ask, we're kind of at the end of the show. I don't know. I might have to rethink this 30 minutes thing
it went by
because
really fast.
it really did, and I know there was a lot more we kind of wanted to touch on. So I don't know. I'll think about that as the season goes on. But
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to sit and chat with me. And yeah, I definitely hope things pick up here and you can get back to the stage and actually hear those screams.
All right, man. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
No problem.
All
And
right.
I'll just get you to stick around for a second. Other than that, if the folks watching, just a reminder. So the next episode is in 2 weeks. I am not announcing the guest yet, just because I'm not totally sure yet. Still working out some details. So we'll see what happens. But definitely tune in. We will have somebody on here in 2 weeks' time. So thanks everybody for joining me and watching, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, guys. Good night.